Hi, I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics, and Fantastic Four Grand Design.
I'm Matt Zeoli.
And you can follow me on Twitter at Tom Scioli or on Instagram at Tom_Scioli.
Follow me on Instagram at cinema_tomb. I love wearing a Halloween costume.
Yeah.
I pretty much remember every Halloween costume I ever wore.
We call it cosplaying now.
Cosplay.
It's got a name. Yeah.
It's got a name. It's
It didn't have a name when we were kids, but it does now.
It was called just dressing up for.
Yeah. Your Halloween costume. Yeah. For me, they came in a box. Like when I was little, you'd get those Ben Cooper ones that came in the box. It was always so exciting. You'd be at like Pomeroy's or something, and you'd see and you'd just see that mask, and like, oh man, like it just. I get a charge just like talking about it now, like remembering like how exciting it was. You pick out your costume.
When I was really little, my mom made my costumes. I was a court jester. I got to show you the picture. I have it somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I was a court jester. I was a mouse. Here's a deep cut. Van Gogh the lion from Zoobilee Zoo.
Okay, yeah.
Do you remember the Zoobilee
Zoo? Yeah, I remember
Zoo?
Zoobilee Zoo, yeah.
And I specifically liked Van Gogh, so I was Van Gogh the lion.
That's nice your mom made costumes for you. I mean, there were 5 of us kids growing up, so my mom didn't have time to make Halloween costumes. We got the Ben Cooper ones, and I was perfectly happy with that. But when I got a little bit older, when I got into like maybe 3rd or 4th grade, I started making my own costumes.
Same here. Like, I was obsessed with special effects when I was in elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I'm gonna be a special effects master. Did not become a special effects master, but I would like. I was reading like those Crestwood House monster books.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I got into like the Frankensteins and Wolfmen and mummies and stuff, and I was like. I would read in the books like how they did the makeup, and I remember reading like Spirit Gum.
Yeah,
so when I was in 4th grade, I was the werewolf, and I put I glued individual like fur on my face.
With Spirit Gum or just like Elmer's?
Spirit Gum. It was like the clear stuff you would put on. And I remember I gotta find this too. It was a school picture, but I put wolf fur like up on around my face, and the Spirit Gum pulled all my skin off between my eyes.
Well, sure, because it's like okay, this is the way they do it in the movies, but it's not because it's like safe or healthy. It's like that's what they were doing. That's what they were doing in the Lon Chaney Sr. era, And Lon Chaney Sr. famously would like torture himself with this makeup. He'd put like rings into like his eye sockets and like stick all kinds of weird stuff in his mouth and like shorten his life and.
In my school picture, I have this like big like wound on my forehead. It was from my werewolf man.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, you were using the pro stuff. Like, you hear about the guys who go into those like. Where they make those full face casts and they have to have the straws stuck in their noses, and it just sounds like torture.
Sounds like torture to me because I get sick just doing my like teeth cast at the dentist.
Yeah, that's the way, having to keep your mouth open and and in a set pose. Yeah, I hear you.
We loved Bigfoot, so my mom made a Bigfoot costume for my little brother Jacob, and it was just like it was a fur. She got like fur you could buy at like the craft store, and then I was a monster one year, so like it was just fur, black fur. But the good thing was I could use that costume a couple years, or I could just like mix and match a mask with it, just like a furry body, and like it was like a creature.
I remember I was Mork. I had like a Mork costume, one of those store-bought ones with a
nice
mask. I was Yoda.
Lol.
That was like fresh off of Empire Strikes Back. Had the Yoda one.
In E.T. when they're trick-or-treating, I was like, that person that was trick-or-treating as Yoda was like cutting edge. It was like 82, so I was like, whoa, that's some fresh shit.
I think I talked about this on our Clash of the Titans episode, but there was, it was like a Halloween costume contest for the Cub Scouts.
Oh, nice.
And there was somebody who, just of my like childhood memory, had a Chewbacca costume that was like movie quality. My memory, like maybe it was a shitty costume and I was just a kid and thought, but like, where did you get that?
Wow.
Where did you get that? Like, you obviously didn't get it out of the same box that I got my Yoda costume out of.
That's amazing.
And of course he won. The reason I mentioned it on the Clash of the Titans episode was because the guy with the Chewbacca costume won the contest and got some Clash of the Titans action figures.
Dude,
as the prize.
That's not fair. Using the Chewie costume. My favorite makeup, it was Living Nightmare was called, and it was by like Fun World, and I loved the packaging. I still remember it. Like the vampire was like the Count, or like they had a witch, a zombie, and it was like these Living Nightmare makeup kits were like R-rated, like it was a gruesome stuff that was like in a toy store. It should have been in like a toy.
I mean, I remember, like, I don't know if it was Living Nightmare, but I do remember there being like a brand of Halloween makeup that would be in, you know, like the CVS or something. I was a werewolf one year, and like I didn't use actual fur. I just sort of painted my face like furry and gave myself like a sort of like a dog nose, you know, painted a dog nose and stuff, and had you know, like those like Dracula teeth.
But then see your werewolf.
It was probably like 1985 or 1986 or something, maybe 87, and like you can tell it's the 80s if you see the picture, because then I have this like black mesh sleeveless t-shirt with this like black mesh sleeveless shirt with like 3 color stripes going diagonally down the front.
Awesome.
I wasn't going for 80s werewolf, but if you see it now, it's 80s werewolf. I'll have to dig.
I'm gonna dig my werewolf. Yeah. But we should do like dueling werewolves.
I'd like to see,
because my mom took a picture of us outside, and my brother Jacob was there, and he was the Penguin from Batman Returns.
That's good. Yeah.
So he had like a
that's scary.
A pillow in his stomach, and he had an umbrella, and it was like the makeup kit you get, had the fake nose you put on. It was fun, but I'm like going like this because I had like the werewolf fingers, and I
feel like I did something with my hands too. Like it had some kind of like fake fingertips fingers or something. And then I was like a pirate one year.
Oh, that's
probably like when I was in first grade. And again, it was one I made myself. You know, get like a schmata. You know, like
awesome.
You know, get like, basically what you're wearing around your neck. Get something like that tied up on my head. Had like this plastic pirate sword. This was kind of like there was like the big pirate craze of like the early 2000s post Pirates of the Caribbean. But this was like the first pirate craze of the 80s, where it was like post the pirate movie.
Oh,
have you ever heard of the pirate movie? Yeah, and Yellowbeard. Okay. And so there was this kind of like mini pirate renaissance going on. So I was kind of riffing off of that.
Yeah, we need to get back to like that vibe. It's kind of like with Scream, like all the horror movies after Scream were of a feeling. It's like all pirates now are like an offshoot of Captain Jack Sparrow.
Right. Somebody come in and do an old school pirate movie.
We should do Nate and Hayes. We got to cover Nate and Hayes. That's what I'm talking about.
The pirate movie from the 80s, it made me become a fan of the Pirates of Penzance. It made me a Gilbert and Sullivan fan, because it was kind of like they were doing the Pirates of Penzance, but then it was like MTV'd up. Like it was kind of like more of like a rock and roll Pirates of Penzance, but then it was kind of like, you know, I started reading about Pirates of Penzance after that. I'm like, oh, this sounds about like, because it's the plot twist in the pirate movie, which is from Pirates of Penzance. It's an interesting plot twist where this kid gets kidnapped by pirates, and I guess his parents or something, they sign a contract where on his 18th birthday he won't have to be a pirate anymore. He'll be free, but he was born on a leap year, so it like he'll be like 102 on his 18th birthday or something. So I think this was like the year after my werewolf costume, so it might have been like 88. But I went as the Shadow.
Oh, that's awesome!
The Shadow, yeah, and it was a homemade costume. I had sort of like what I would call like a breakdancing hat. You know, it was like this like fedora.
Amazing.
It was like a fedora that like you know, they'd wear in like Break Into Electric Boogaloo or something. That Shabadoo would wear.
There was nothing cooler than breakdancing. I remember embarrassing myself at like a family party with my older cousins. They were like. I was trying to show off.
Yeah.
You know how you always try to show off? Like we're trying to show off right here. I haven't stopped trying to show off. But I'm like, check out my breakdancing. I was dead serious, and they thought it was ridiculous.
There was this like street that was kind of like, you know, our street fed off of. So this was kind of like the main street. Like to me, it was like it would be like crossing, an 8-lane highway. But meanwhile, it was just this like little, street. It was just like busier than the street I lived on. But like I would walk to like the corner where I'd be adjacent to this street. And I would do the worm, and like I do all my breakdance moves to entertain the people as they drove by. Like I don't know if I thought like maybe some like casting agent or somebody would see me doing my breakdancing and
Dude, you know what? You had the right mindset. Like you didn't have any cardboard you were putting down.
I don't know. I was just doing it like on the grass.
Like that's what. Like in I just remember Larry Zerner from Friday the 13th Part 3. He was just standing on a corner handing out like pamphlets, and the guy pulled up and was like, "I want you to be in my movie."
Yeah.
It's like you were on track.
That was my version of Lana Turner at the drugstore counter drinking a milkshake. While we're still on like the shadow costume with my Run DMC hat or whatever.
That's amazing.
When I was trick or treating, one of the guys was like an old guy, and he must have like grown up with the shadow, or he was like the right demographic for it. Probably listened to him on the radio and stuff. But he was critiquing my costume because it wasn't like accurate. Like I wasn't doing like the official Walter Gibson shadow, where like the Walter Gibson shadow, he has like this red scarf over his face, and then his like nose sticks over it.
Yeah.
For me, I was doing like a variation where I was just a complete shadow. Like I was just completely silhouette. So
That's so cool.
I had like a cape, not a trench coat. I had like a cape, I had the black hat, and then I put like a black t-shirt over my face and just kind of pulled it tight, and I could like kind of see out of but like so there's no face. I was a complete shadow. And what I was riffing off of, and so this would probably help me remember the year that this was, because I was riffing off of an episode of the new Twilight Zone. There's like a new 80s Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
And one of them, the episodes was The Shadow Man. I am the Shadow Man. And he like the Shadow Man lives under your bed. And it's like, I am the Shadow Man. I will never harm the person under whose bed I live. And so he was and so I was kind of doing that. I was kind of doing a cross between the like vigilante pulp hero Shadow and the Shadow Man.
That's awesome. I don't think I've seen that.
You should check. I mean, that's the Twilight Zone to me. Like the 80s Twilight Zone was like the Twilight Zone I grew up with, and then like when I was a little older, I learned about like the black and white Twilight Zone, and now I'm like super into that. I revisited the 80s one a little bit. The 80s one is like my Twilight Zone, and then.
Well, I can't believe that guy was giving this was the 80s, right?
This was the 80s.
You're
Maybe it might have been 1990. It might have been like right at the cusp of the 80s and the 90s, but probably the 80s.
Like you're pulling like the Shadow, like this is pre-Alec Baldwin Shadow.
Yeah, pre-Alec Baldwin Shadow.
You're pulling that character, and he's giving you a hard time. You're like, that's a sophisticated character to.
Yeah, you'd think he'd appreciate it, but you know what it is? This is Philly. And that's the kind of shit people give you in Philly.
Yeah.
They're not going to give you the pat on the back and say, "Oh, good job on the deep cut shadow." They're going to tell you like, your shadow is a little off, kid.
They're going to
come back next year. Your shadow's not. If you want candy, you better look a little more accurate. The shadow. Where's your black scarf? How come I can't see your nose? Why isn't your nose sticking out over a black scarf? You're calling yourself the Shadow. You're something else. You're something else. You're not the Shadow. You're Shadow Man from that Twilight Zone episode. And it's the shitty Twilight Zone. You got to check out the old Twilight Zone if you want to see good Twilight Zone. That's shit.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go throw a snowball at Santa.
I didn't egg his house or anything, but like you're asking to get your house egged if you're roasting the costumes.
We did. I did get a little egg action on Michael. I hit Michael Myers with eggs. We got scared. We were trick or treating when I was.
What were you doing with eggs? You were looking for trouble. You didn't just come back from Giant Eagle with a dozen eggs.
There was this
your mom.
person walking around dressed as Michael Myers, and we were scared because he wasn't trick or treating. He was just walking around and threw a couple eggs at this character, and then he like broke into a full sprint and chased after us.
A Halloween episode, but like. There's that scene where he's driving by in the car, and she's like, "Speed kills, asshole!" And then he slams on the brakes, and I was like, "Oh shit!
Isn't that?
He's gonna fucking kill them!" And I like it. Kind of brought back memories. Like I kind of remember similar things where like you shout something to somebody as they're driving by, and then they slam on the brakes, and you're like, "Oh fuck!" And then like everybody runs,
That is,
you know,
so,
like it's
that's
so
some real
yeah,
shit.
that's real.
Just walk. My brothers were in this cornfield, and we would like throw some corn on the cob, and then we heard a car pull to the stop, and there's people like yelling, and we're like, "Oh my god!" We like started running
because you see a car going by, and you're like, "Okay, that car's just gonna go by," and you're a kid. You feel like when you're a kid, you feel kind of invisible, like nobody. So like you feel like, oh, you could throw a corn cob or shout something at somebody, and they're not. But it's like, no, you fucked with the wrong
guy. It was Michael Myers.
Yeah.
Who like, if somebody was doing the work, they like somehow like either have a heart attack or something happens where they're locked into the worm where they can't.
They get some. Yeah, they're having some episode. Yeah.
So, where they're in the worm, and they can't get out, and they're like pleading. They're like, "Hey, this isn't funny. Help me! I'm still doing the worm." They can't get out of doing the worm.
I could only do the worm backwards. I, for the life of me, never figured out how to do the worm forwards. I could only do it backwards.
That's awesome. I like hurt my ribs. Every kid, I
hurt my neck doing the head spin. I was doing the head spin, and like my neck like hurt for a couple weeks after that.
I attempted the head spin, and I attempted the worm too, and I gave up. But yeah, like if you ever see me in the worm and not being able to stop,
get the jaws of life or whatever, get the paddles to resuscitate you. One year, it's like we did a play in like early grade. It was like 4th grade or something. We did this like short little play in a class, and I needed like a medieval outfit.
Ooh,
and my mom helped me with a medieval outfit, you know, like a cool shirt and a belt and stuff. So I had this kind of medieval outfit. So then that Halloween, I got like a hood and this medieval outfit, and then had this like kind of like monster, just this like green ghoul mask or whatever. And so then I was like a goblin, like a Tolkien-esque
that's great.
orc. Or so I don't think I would have thought to use the word orc back then, but like a goblin, you know.
If we were in the same school, I'd be like, that guy's costume is awesome. Speaking of Living Nightmare, I'm still obsessed with the Living Nightmare makeup, and there was a burn victim you could do, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna be.
Yeah, that sounds extreme.
It was extreme, and like, I was gonna be a burnt firefighter.
Okay, Fire Marshal Bill.
Yes, I was Fire Marshal Bill. I borrowed my cousin was a firefighter, and I borrowed his oversized like fire coat. And I had mixed this potion. I had tried it out at home on my face. I was like, this is great. I was going to a Halloween party, like for the Scouts. And I was like, I'm going to blow everyone's mind. So I mixed up a batch of this like stuff for my face. But I put it in remember the containers that film would go in, like for your camera? Like a little like...
Oh, I think I know where this is going. It reacted with the plastic and like hardened.
It hardened in
the canister, because that would happen when I would do paintings. If you used acrylic paint, you wouldn't want to use a plastic palette. You'd want to use a metal palette because the paint hardens. It reacts with because the paint itself is plastic. It reacts with the plastic.
That's what happened.
Palette, and it dries out.
It came out like a can of dog food.
Yeah, and you'd want to store it in like a glass bottle, not a plastic bottle. That's hilarious.
That's exactly. And I was like, well, there you go. Now I'm just a dorky like.
You're just firefighter. Like now it's like a kindergarten costume. You know,
yeah.
Like, I'm a firefighter.
Junior fireman.
Right,
I have like a little like tiny mustache or whatever.
Oh, Boba Fett.
What?
I was Boba Fett one year. Boba Fett, one of those plastic Boba Fett costumes.
That's awesome.
I still have the mask.
Tom, that's great. You still have the mask?
Yeah, I'll look for my little plastic Boba Fett mask.
That's incredible.
It's getting hazy. I wish I could remember exactly like all this. But yeah, Mork one year was. I'm Mork from Mork. Nano.
That's sick.
We talked about that. Like Mork was my hero when I was a kid.
Love Mork.
And so Robin Williams,
My brothers bust my balls.
Right, you got the your arms are a tribute to Robin Williams. To this day, it's like that was his imprint. Mork.
Tom,
Mork was aspirational to me. Like that's what I imagined adulthood to be. Like you're this goofy guy wearing crazy clothes.
It still can be that. I'm
sitting on your head, nonconformist, I guess.
What I'm wearing this Alan Grant costume.
I think Mork was kind of like the hippie dream, sticking around into like the late 70s, early 80s. This nonconformist, path of rejecting the conventional. Because I think we're getting close to when I stopped trick-or-treating. Like, I might have trick-or-treated like freshman year, and then that was it. Sort of, and it's that sad thing of like, yeah, I'm not a kid anymore. I'm a freshman in high school. I guess I can't be doing this anymore.
Like my brothers were still trick-or-treating, so I would try to like squeeze a couple years with like
right. Hey, I'm chaperoning the kids. Yeah.
Yeah, I would use that kind of like a to tag along, be like, hey, I'm watching these guys here. Yeah. But like one of the last years was I was Gallagher. Mm-hmm. I think that's
been a running bit on these episodes. You've talked about your Gallagher costume multiple times.
Yeah, like
crowbarred it into many an episode.
It's a runner that nobody wanted. It's like
no, but that is. I mean, that's forward thinking. That's.
It's like
you had like a little school desk on wheels that you would ride around on. I don't know if you ever saw that one. Where Gallagher's riding around in the school and he say style. Style, because he always had to have like a theme, so it's like this theme was style.
I was actually Gallagher 2.
Right, yeah, Gallagher 3. You invented your own. Do you remember what your final costume? Because I remember mine. I don't know that I ever dressed up for Halloween ever again after this. This was so I stopped freshman year of high school, didn't trick or treat all through high school, and then freshman year of college, it was like. I'm in a new city. I'm in Pittsburgh. Don't know anybody. And it's like it's Halloween, and so I'm like I'm gonna go trick or treating. Like
hell yeah.
I don't know that I've had a costume since then. Like I think the other year I maybe last year or 2 years ago or whatever I dressed up as like a Ghostbuster because I happened to find like a Ghostbuster, so it was easy enough. Put on a Ghostbuster jacket, some tan pants, walk around with like some pieces from the vacuum cleaner, So like this one, when it was freshman year of college, and I wanted to go trick or treating. I didn't have a costume, so I took this like big brown paper bag and I just wrote Batman on it and just cut eye holes out of it. And I was like, and then people would be like, I'd knock on this 18-year-old knocks on your door and it's like, oh, what kind of costume is that? Who are you supposed to be? I'm Batman. You don't look like Batman.
Like someone knocks on your door and like with a paper bag on their head. I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah, you think it's Clockwork Orange or something.
They're like, time for a little bit of the old ultraviolet.
You said you've been watching like the Howard Stern Channel 9 shows. Did you get to the episode where the Halloween episode where they go around the neighborhood, all of them, Jackie, Fred, Baba Booey, Ronnie the limo driver, like before Ronnie the limo driver became a superstar and he was just like a limo driver, he's in there too. And they're all wearing these like Marge Simpson masks. And they're like, they're going door to door trick or treating, and like Stern is saying he's like, yeah, we look like Clockwork Orange, like a bunch of scary guys with like weird masks, and and then
so funny.
It's kind of cool because like they're trying to eventually they like meet like these two women and they convince them to like take them home with them, and then they get to their house, and then they like get in lingerie and start giving them massages and stuff. And it becomes like a whole thing, it's pretty hilarious. Yeah.
See this episode? Yeah. Like they're like Clockwork Orange. Yeah. You're like, time for a bit of the ultraviolence.
A bit of the old ultraviolence.
Yeah,
some
like
milk plus some cold chocks with my droogies.
There was the one I rewatched like twice, the Richard Simmons.
Yeah, I mean that's the show that made me a fan of Howard Stern, because like it was like we didn't have. I think he was on the radio in Philadelphia at that point, but like I wasn't listening to the radio. But like it was like somebody had some VHS tapes that they dubbed from somebody who like lived in New York taping the Channel 9 show, and like so like we were watching them, and I just saw that episode where Richard Simmons is on, and then Howard Stern's got like a fishing line with like a turkey on a tray, and it's like dangling it in front of Michael Habranco, and I was a fan for life after that. Yeah. That's an iconic bit. Like people still talk about that.
They're like, Richard tries to leave during the commercial breaks. They keep mentioning it. Yeah. He's like, no, I swear. He's like, Richard tried to get up and leave.
Yeah. So do you remember your final Or and not fine because you're wearing a Halloween costume right now. So like, what? But what was like your last trick or
I
treating?
like get electrocuted. This is my final costume. I'm like,
you were trick or treating? Like, what were you wearing the last time you went trick or treating?
I want to say 80s camouflage.
Okay.
Because
80s so like like the green camo.
like the green
It's so funny because like growing up, the green camouflage was like the only camouflage. That's what camouflage is. It's like they wore it in World War II. They wore it in the Korean War. They wore it in the Vietnam War. They wore it in Grenada. The green camouflage. And then it's like the 90s happen, and all of a sudden it's desert camo. It's
yes.
And like green camo became so passé.
It was
so out of date. Like
I know you see that it like bumps you now.
Yeah,
it makes you think of the like you're like when you're a kid
Sets
you wanted
era.
anything with like like that camo.
Yeah, that like the A-Team camo, and then it was desert camo, and like the G.I. Joe characters start being all desert camo, and
like dusty and stuff.
Yeah.
That it was the Halloween we were just like mischief making.
Gunny Highway from Heartbreak Ridge. That was like the last time anybody wore the green 80s camo. Were you ever dressed as Swamp Thing? I feel like Swamp Thing would have been a costume you'd try.
You know what? I think I might have. That definitely crossed my mind.
You said Ernest?
I was Ernest as an adult.
Okay.
I was probably Ernest for Halloween like 10, 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great costume. Like nobody got it except for like one person or two people, but they were like blew their minds. They're like Ernest. And then that one time when I was Gallagher, there was this guy on the porch. He was like, "Nice costume, Gallagher."
Yeah, that's an inaccurate Gallagher. That's not Gallagher 1 or 2.
Yeah,
you've created some other kind of Gallagher.
Gallagher 4, the Voyage Home, or whatever.
What was your costume fail? What was like your worst costume, or some costume that just completely crapped out?
The fireman costume was a botch.
That was a fail. The Wolfman was a success, but the fact that you gave yourself like a permanent skin condition
right before my school picture.
Right.
I'm wearing like Batman Returns, a purple like Batman Returns shirt in my picture. My hair is like terrible, like it always is, and I have this like scab on my forehead.
I'm picturing like your Wolfman costume. It's almost like a tan line or something. You have all this red in the shape of like your werewolf face.
Yeah, it's like everywhere I put that fur, because the fur came in like just like a big ball, and I would like pull it off, put some spirit gum, and like stick the fur on my face, and it scarred me up.
My fail would be that either that Batman costume that was just a paper bag on. I mean, I was being an asshole. I was being
funny.
That was
as
sarcastic. But I guess like according to this one guy in Philly whose house I trick or treated at, the inaccurate shadow costume would have been my fail.
Also, how would that's so funny that the person also recognized the shadow.
Yeah, if it's such a bad costume, how come you recognized it?
Yeah,
Gramps.
Yeah,
it'd be like a good. They sometimes they'll do those things like on 60 Minutes or something where they'll go with somebody to like the house they grew up in and the neighborhood. Ed Bradley goes with you. Ed Bradley comes with me to go to that guy's house. Like, yeah, this is where that motherfucker told me my shadow costume didn't cut the mustard.
And he's like, wait, what?
And I'm wearing the shadow costume.
Ed Bradley's like, cut the camera. And he's like, we're here with Tom. Going back to his childhood. And he's like, yeah, this is where I grew up. Here's the street I grew up in this house.
This motherfucker.
You like get real like steamed. I was Count Dracula. Mm-hmm. I got like the makeup kit with like the red medallion.
Okay. Yeah, the medallion, man. That disco Dracula,
Yeah, it has like I'm like disco Drac don't advertise or whatever.
You've been watching the Halloween costume fails or epic wins episode of the Total Recall Show. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics and Fantastic Four Grand Design.
I'm Matt Zeoli.
And you can follow me on Twitter at Tom Scioli or on Instagram at Tom_Scioli.
Follow me on Instagram at cinema_tomb.
And please support my Patreon. Go to patreon.com, search Tom Scioli, and see all kinds of comics I've been creating over the past few years. You'll have full access to the archives and enjoy what you see there.
Follow the show on Instagram at total_recall_show.
And we'll see you next Halloween.
who knows what evil lurks
in the heart of Scioli. You know, I show up as the Green Hornet. Or something, you know.
He's like, that Green Hornet costume's shit. I know which era of Green Hornet you are.
Hey, are you supposed to be Charles Foster Kane? Who the hell do you think you are? Yeah. You're no Charles Foster Kane.
Yeah, he's like the Phantom. You're like the second Phantom.
Right? Yeah, the Lee Fawkes Phantom.
It looks like garbage.